My price was 5 million won. My price was 5 million won. To me, a 29-year-old who couldn't even afford 500,000 won for rent and was scraping by on discarded kimbap from the convenience store. A message arrived, 5 million won a month, room and board provided. The sender was a successful college senior. The one everyone envied, the one who even appeared on TV. If it were you, wouldn't you have grabbed that lifeline? I had no idea that rope was an iron chain, dragging me down to hell. And so begins a story of one woman's desperation and a terrible betrayal. If you want to see how Seoyun's story unfolds, and whether she can escape this hell, please be sure to subscribe and like this video. 1. The lifeline. While your qualifications are excellent, unfortunately, at 29, Kim Seoyun's year was summarized by that one sentence. Unfortunately, it felt as if her very existence had become an object of unfortunate pity. The damp air of her sun-deprived, semi-basement, one-room apartment mixed with the smell of mold, stinging her nose. Tonight's menu was the last remaining roll of yesterday's convenience store kimbap. Chewing on the cold end piece of the kimbap, she mechanically deleted the dozens of rejection emails glowing on her laptop screen. Her bank account balance was 173,000 won. Her rent, due next week, was 500,000 won. The text message from the Korea Student Aid Foundation, demanding repayment of her student loans, had been left unread for 5 days. Asking her parents for help wasn't a matter of pride. Knowing their difficult situation back in the countryside, she couldn't bring herself to form the words. A sigh escaped on its own. Seoyun picked up her smartphone, as if by habit. The meaningless scrolling began. Her friends were all doing their part. Someone had bought their first car, boasting of their 3rd year at a major corporation. Someone else was sending out wedding invitations. Comparing their glittering lives to her own situation was no longer painful, just numbing. It was simply a story from a different world. Just then, a familiar but distant profile picture popped up. At the top of her screen, Jaeha Lee posted a story. Lee Jaeha, a senior from her college theater club, 2 years older. After graduation, he had steadily pursued acting, and for the past few years, he'd landed lead roles in web dramas, and even appeared on major broadcast networks in significant supporting roles. He was, in short, a semi-celebrity. Ever since his club days, Jaeha had been a person who shined. A friendly personality, tall stature, and a disarming, gentle eye smile. He was the oppa everyone adored, the kind of guy who'd strike up a conversation, even with a freshman like Seoyun. His Instagram story was glamorous today, as always. A video of him popping champagne in a blue infinity pool. A photo with foreigners, arms slung around each other at a fancy resort party. And another clip captioned, "Lobster for dinner tonight," showing a steaming hot dish. Cambodia life #Phnom Penh #land of opportunity #business, for the past few months. His feed had been flooded with stories from Cambodia. At first, she thought he was there for a shoot, but once the #business started appearing, it seemed he had set up camp there for good. Seoyun gave a bitter smile and moved to close the screen. The gap between his brilliant life and her mold-scented room was too stark. She didn't want to see any more. It was right at that moment. Ding, an Instagram DM notification chimed. The sender was Lee Jaeha, the very person she had just been staring at with a mixture of envy and admiration. Her heart gave a light thump and settled. Jaeha. Seoyun, how have you been? She couldn't even remember how many years it had been since they'd last spoken. Seoyun swallowed hard and tapped at her keyboard. Seoyun, oh my, oppa. What's this? I'm just getting by. You, on the other hand, are doing amazing. I've been following your Insta. She replied in a way that sounded as least pathetic as possible. As if she had no problems in the world. In less than a minute, the read receipt appeared, and a reply flew back. Jaeha, haha, what? It's all just for show. It's all debt. KK. At those words, Seoyun felt a strange sense of kinship, and a layer of her defensiveness melted away. Jaeha, the real reason I'm messaging. I just started a small entertainment and resort business here in Cambodia. I was wondering if you were looking for a job. Seoyun, what? Me? Jaeha, yeah, you spoke English pretty well in college. And you were always meticulous and hardworking. I need someone just like you. Someone to care for our Korean clients. Handle some light translation and office work. Her heart began to beat harder than before. Seoyun, Cambodia. Isn't it a little dangerous there? I saw on the news. Seoyun's fingers hesitated, but Jaeha's reply was immediate. Jaeha, Seoyun, don't be so naive. That's all old stories or just in certain areas. Where I am, Phnom Penh, it's a completely different world. It's flashier than Gangnam in Seoul. Haven't you seen my Insta? You have me here. What's there to worry about? His words had a strange power of persuasion. His Instagram feed was proof. Surely this public figure, in such a glamorous place, surrounded by so many people, wouldn't. Jaeha, I'll guarantee 5 million won a month. Room and board, of course, fully provided. We'll even buy your plane ticket. You just have to bring yourself. How about it? Just think of it as toughing it out for 1 year. 5 million won a month. That number captured Seoyun's gaze. 5 million won. It was money she could never dream of earning as a new hire in Korea. If she worked for just 1 year, that was 60 million won. It was enough to pay off her suffocating student loans with money to spare. It was the money that could get her out of this moldy semi-basement. Seoyun, really? Are you sure someone like me is okay? Jaeha, of course. I thought of a few others, but you were the first person who came to mind, Seoyun. You're diligent, a trustworthy person. Just let me know within 3 days. This spot will fill up fast. You're diligent, a trustworthy person. You were the first person who came to mind. To Seoyun, who had spent the last year having her value defined only by the word rejection. Jaeha's words spread like a sweet poison. He had chosen her. Seoyun stared out the window with bloodshot eyes. It was barely a window, a narrow slit that showed only the ankles of passers-by, and dirty rainwater was pooling in the small space. What was more dangerous, leaving for an unknown, foreign land? Or staying here, collapsing in this hopeless reality, and slowly rotting away? At the very least, Jaeha Oppa was someone she knew. He was a famous person who appeared on TV. He wouldn't deceive her. He had no reason to. Right, just 1 year. Let's just endure it for 1 year. With trembling hands, Seoyun sent her reply. Seoyun Oppa, I'll do it. I'll go to Cambodia. Jaeha, great. Good thinking. That's my Seoyun. I'll book your flight right away. Send me your passport photo and your name in English. See you at the Phnom Penh airport in 2 weeks. Everything moved in a flash. Seoyun lied to her mother. I got a job at a small trading company in Seoul. I'll be in the company dorms for a while. She got her security deposit back and packed only the bare minimum. 2 weeks later, Incheon Airport departure terminal. Seoyun forced a smile as she stood in front of the departures board, which clearly read, bound for Phnom Penh PNH. As her feet carried her onto the plane, a small thread of anxiety was tangled with a much, much larger, desperate hope. The humid, hot air of a foreign country was waiting for her. She firmly believed it was the wind blowing from the land of opportunity. 2. The red gate. As she whooshed, in a breath, sticky, hot air filled the depths of her lungs. It was past 11 p.m., but the air at Phnom Penh International Airport enveloped Seoyun's entire body like steam in a giant sauna. The thin cotton t-shirt she had worn all year instantly clung to her back. Seoyun, ah, Kim Seoyun, Oppa's over here. In the crowd, a particularly pale, tall man was waving his hand. Lee Jaeha. He was a little more tan than he looked on screen, and a little flashier. His black silk shirt was unbuttoned by 2, and a thick gold necklace gleamed on his sweat-drenched collarbone. He was wearing black sunglasses, even at night. Oppa. Seoyun felt all her anxiety melt away in an instant and ran toward him. In this year of hardship, he was the only familiar face. Aigu, our Seoyun, you suffered, coming all this way. Jaeha pushed his sunglasses up onto his head and gave her a tight hug. Instead of the faint fabric softener scent she remembered from the club room 10 years ago, a strong, exotic perfume mixed with the smell of sweat hit her. He patted her shoulder hard a few times, then immediately grabbed her suitcase. Let's go. The car's waiting. His movements were confident, and he brimmed with the self-assurance of someone who had everything prepared. Seoyun just nodded and followed his broad back. In the airport parking lot, there wasn't a shiny sedan or a resort shuttle bus. Instead, a massive, black SUV with heavily tinted, blacked-out windows stood waiting. Wow, is this your car, Oppa? It's huge. Nah, company car. Get in, get in. You must be tired. Jaeha practically pushed Seoyun into the back seat, and then got into the passenger seat himself. A skinny local man was already sitting silently in the driver's seat. As the car door closed, the noise and heat from outside were cut off as if by a switch. The air conditioning was so strong it felt cold, almost chilling. The car pulled smoothly out of the airport. For the first 30 minutes, the bright lights of Phnom Penh flew past the window. Flashy casino signs, restaurants with a scattering of Korean text, endless streams of motorcycles. Wow, it's really just like you said. It's a real city, right? What did I tell you? Money is pouring into this place. You can't even compare it to Korea, Jaeha said, leaning his seat back with his arms crossed. His voice was laced with an arrogant confidence. But, Oppa, where are we going? I thought the resort was in the city? Before her question could even finish, the car left the glamorous city center and began to be swallowed by the darkness. The streetlights grew noticeably sparse, and the paved road eventually turned into a bumpy, unpaved track. Ah, the main headquarters is near Sihanoukville. That's the real hotspot right now. Phnom Penh is just a branch. You'll be working at the main office. See, Sihanoukville? How long does it take to get there? We'll be there soon. You just sleep. Jaeha answered curtly and clammed up. He took his phone out of his pocket and began to type something furiously. Seoyun glanced at his screen in the darkness. It wasn't English or Korean. It was complex characters, maybe simplified Chinese, flying back and forth. He must have felt her gaze. As he quickly flipped his phone screen down onto his thigh, an uncomfortable silence filled the car. Thud. Every time the car hit a major bump, Seoyun's heart sank with it. An hour passed. Then too, the world outside was now complete and total darkness. The only things that occasionally appeared were unidentified checkpoints. Men who looked like soldiers or police, with rifles slung over their shoulders, would stop the car. The driver would roll the window down slightly, say a few words, or hand something over. Through it all, Jaeha sat perfectly still, his eyes closed. Seoyun swallowed dryly. Her vow to just endure it for 1 year felt like something she'd left behind at the airport. The emotion ruling her now wasn't curiosity about a new place, but a primal, unidentifiable fear. Oppa, are you sleeping? Excuse me, are we almost there? Her voice was trembling slightly. Jaeha, his eyes still closed, slowly opened them. She couldn't see his expression through the sunglasses. We're here. His voice was low and dry. It wasn't the welcoming tone from the airport. The car slowed down. Seoyun pressed her face to the window, peering out. There were no bright lights of a resort. Instead, a massive concrete wall loomed in the darkness. It was high enough to be a prison wall. Sharp barbed wire was coiled along the top, and searchlights, spaced several meters apart, illuminated the desolate surroundings. The car followed the wall for some time, before stopping in front of a massive, red iron gate. There was no sign that might say, city, or any other name. There was only the overwhelmingly huge iron gate, its red paint peeling in patches. Armed guards on either side of the gate aimed their rifles at the car. The driver honked 3 short times. Krrreeeek, with the horrifying sound of rusted metal grinding together. The red iron gate began to slide slowly open. Oppa, is this the company? Seoyun's voice was now almost a sob. Yeah, we're here. This is our city. Jaeha replied mechanically. His voice was devoid of all emotion. The car slowly entered through the open gap. The inside was even more desolate. A vast concrete plaza was surrounded by dozens of identical 10-story buildings, each with iron bars on the windows, arranged like a folding screen. This was not a resort. It was certainly not the land of opportunity. It was a massive compound. The car stopped in the middle of the plaza. Jaeha got out first. Seoyun, paralyzed by terror, could only clutch the door handle, unable to move. "Get out," Jaeha said, opening Seoyun's door. His voice was not the voice of the Lee Jaeha she knew. It was cold, menacing, and completely void of warmth. At that moment, two shadows flickered in the darkness. Two burly men with dragon tattoos coiling up their necks. They nodded at Jaeha, then looked Seoyun up and down. Their gaze was explicit, like farmers inspecting livestock at a market. "Wait, what are you doing?" As Seoyun tried to shrink back in terror, she saw it. Jaeha took a thick white envelope from his pocket and handed it to the man with the dragon tattoo. The man opened the envelope and checked its contents. It wasn't a bundle of dollars. It was bundles of 50,000 won bills. Seoyun intuitively knew it was exactly 5 million won. "Oppa?" Her voice cracked. The man with the dragon tattoo nodded, satisfied. Only then did Jaeha turn to look at Seoyun. His face bore none of the expressions she had remembered for the past 10 years. The kindness of the theater club senior. The relaxed air of the semi-celebrity. The confidence of the successful businessman, all of it was gone. In its place was a cold, cynical smile, mixed with contempt and indifference. 5 million won, your price. Seoyun's mind went white. Price. 5 million won. The words spun in her head, refusing to make sense. "No, Oppa, stop joking. This is a joke, right? I want to go home. I'm going back to Korea. My plane ticket," she cried out, trying to move toward him. But the tattooed men roughly grabbed her by both arms. Their grip was like iron. Seoyun screamed, "From now on, they are your bosses." Jaeha lit a cigarette, took a long drag, and said flatly. He didn't look at her again. He turned and got back into the passenger seat of the SUV. "No, Oppa, Jaeha, Oppa, why are you doing this to me? Open the door." "No," Seoyun thrashed desperately, but the men's grip didn't budge. Her suitcase was roughly yanked from the trunk and thrown to the ground. The SUV slowly turned and drove back toward the red iron gate. They had just entered. "Don't go. No, no." Her screams echoed emptily off the concrete plaza. Krrreak, the red iron gate she had entered through, began to close again. The SUV carrying Jaeha slipped out through the gap. Seoyun watched, devastated, as the darkness of the outside world vanished, inch by inch, through the closing gap. Clang! Finally, the iron gate slammed shut, and the sound of a heavy metal lock engaging rang out. It sounded like a starting gun, signaling the end of her 29 years of life. She was surrounded, her arms pinned by strange men. Seoyun stood alone in the middle of a massive prison in a foreign land. A gust of night wind blew past, carrying the smell of mold and the thick, sickening smell of despair. 3. The erased face. The heavy, metallic clang of the red gate, closing, tore through Seoyun's eardrums and embedded itself like a rusted anchor in her soul. Her screams could no longer form sounds. Her body was frozen like stone, her brain refusing to accept the surreal situation. "Get up," the man with the dragon tattoo growled in a mangled Korean mixed with Chinese. They grabbed her arms again, as rough as if handling cargo. Her knees, scraped on the asphalt, burned with a hot pain. But even that felt distant. She was dragged like an animal. The building they entered, C-3, across the plaza, was less a dormitory and more a prison block. The first-floor lobby was empty, and a nauseating stench of mold, disinfectant, and unidentifiable spices hung in the air. The men threw her into a room on the 7th floor. It was a small room, crammed with 4 bunk beds. 7 other women were already there, existing like old furniture. They all had hollow, vacant expressions. Some stared blankly at the wall, others trembled minutely under their blankets. Seoyun's arrival caused no stir, as if this was a daily occurrence. Their dead eyes flickered over Seoyun for a moment before returning to the void. "Unpack." The man threw her suitcase into the middle of the room. The zipper burst, spilling her old clothes, the ones she'd worn for a year, and her cosmetics pouch, her only luxury, onto the floor. "And the phone. Passport. Hand him over." No. This. This is illegal. I'm going to call the embassy. Right, Seoyun shouted instinctively. Crack, a sharp, tearing sound, and her head whipped to the side. Her left cheek burned as if seared by fire. One of the women in the room flinched, but no one looked at her. Here, we are the law. The man dug through Seoyun's pockets and pulled out her smartphone. When she screamed and resisted, the other man punched her in the stomach. A KCH sound escaped her as stomach acid rose in her throat. While Seoyun was doubled over on the floor, gagging. They found her passport, hidden in an inner pocket of her suitcase. Her only identification, the last piece of proof that she was Kim Seoyun, was crumpled in the man's fist. Wash up, be out in 5 minutes. The manager is looking for you. The men left, locking the door behind them. Seoyun lay on the cold floor, unmoving, for a long time. Her cheek was swelling, and her stomach felt like it was being torn apart. Just then, someone from a top bunk dropped a small object. It was a wet wipe. When Seoyun looked up, a pale-faced woman was looking down at her. The woman said nothing, but mouthed the words, "Don't cry. If you cry, they hit you harder." Seoyun gritted her teeth. The tears wouldn't come. Instead, something a mixture of violent rage and terror clawed its way up her throat. She used the wipe to clean her mouth. It came away bloody. A few minutes later, the door opened again, and the man called manager entered. He was different from the tattooed men. He wore a clean shirt and gold-rimmed glasses. A tidy-looking man in his late 30s. But his eyes were 10 times colder than the man who had just hit her. He spoke perfect Korean. Kim Seoyun, right? 29. Graduated from a 4-year university in Seoul. Job seeker. Student loan debt 28 million won. Jaeha sold you for 5 million. Cheap price. He was reciting her information as if reading her resume. How do you know that? We know everything about you. But whatever you did in Korea doesn't matter anymore. Here, your name is Rose. BJ Rose. Understand? What are you talking about? I can't do that. Let me go, right now. Can't? Then you have to pay your debt. Your price was 5 million. Flight was 1.2 million. And, for upsetting my guys today, 3.8 million. Total 10 million won. Your room and board here costs 300,000 won a day. So if you just sit here, your debt only grows. When your debt hits 50 million, you go to room 8. The manager motioned with his chin toward a heavy, red-painted steel door at the far end of the hallway. Room 8, what's in there? Where they sell organs. Seoyun felt her breath stop. Choose, Rose. Will you work quietly, pay off your debt, and leave? Or will you go to room 8? There was no choice. She had a vague idea of what work meant. But it had to be better than room 8. I'll do it, she answered in a voice as small as a mosquito. The manager smiled, satisfied. He led Seoyun to another room at the end of the hall. It was a studio, lined with dozens of cubicles, like an internet cafe. The air in the room was thick with the sickeningly sweet smell of e-cigarette vapor, sweat, and women's makeup. Sit. The cubicle she was assigned, number 37, had a professional webcam, lighting, and a cheap, lace-trimmed slip waiting. This is your job. Adult broadcasts. Look at the camera, smile, dance, do whatever they tell you. See that monitor? That's your performance record. Daily goal $500. If you don't make it, you know what happens. The manager placed his hand on her shoulder. The cold touch made the hair on her arms stand on end. The broadcast runs 24 hours. Starting today, you're on the 12-hour night shift. We'll send in food in a box. He pressed the on-air button. A red light on the camera lit up. The chat window on her monitor began to scroll at a furious pace. Oh, a new face. What's your name? Rose? Let's see if you live up to the name. Take it off. 100 coins. Seoyun froze. The Kim Seoyun on the monitor was just staring at the camera. Her face white with terror. Smile, the manager whispered from behind her. He spoke directly into her ear. Your parents should probably know you're here, shouldn't they? They run a small supermarket in Gangwon-do, right? We know the address. That was the final trigger. Her parents. Seoyun squeezed her eyes shut, then forced them open. She looked at the camera. and she pulled her lips into a smile. She forced the convulsing muscles in her cheeks to move, forming the most miserable, contorted smile in the world. Hello, I'm Rose. Slowly, as if moving someone else's arm, she raised her hand and brought it to the strap of the cheap slip. At that moment, the name, Kim Seoyun, was completely erased. She was now, BJ Rose, trapped in cubicle 37, in a massive prison in a foreign land. Every night, she would have to sell pieces of her soul to the cold eye of the camera. The sound of the red gate slamming shut echoed in her ears every night. A phantom sound that wouldn't leave. 4. A fleeting glimpse. Time lost all meaning. Day and night were distinguished only by the exhausted faces of the other. Women swapping 12-hour shifts. Seoyun was on the night shift. Her time was filled by catering to the twisted desires of the men on the monitor. From midnight to noon, Korea time, when everyone else was asleep. 1 month. In that time, Kim Seoyun had worn away, and only the BJ Rose shell remained. Her world consisted of 2 places: her bunk bed in the 8-person room on the 7th floor, and cubicle 37 at the end of the hall. The air in the 8-person room was heavy with the smell of sweat, damp blankets, and the faint odor of despair. The women did not speak to each other. To speak was to reveal a weakness, and in this place, a weakness was a matter of life and death. Sometimes, from the hallway, she would hear the sound of someone being beaten for failing to meet her quota, or for offending a client, or simply because a guard was in a bad mood. Whenever it happened, Seoyun would pull the blanket over her head and cover her ears. The fear that the screams could one day be her own dug into her bones. Meals were delivered twice a day in styrofoam boxes. Greasy, unidentifiable stir-fries and mealy rice. Seoyun forced it down to survive. She had lost 7 kilograms, about 15 pounds, in the 2 weeks since she arrived. Sunken eyes, sallow skin, lifeless hair. Before sitting in her cubicle, she was required to put on makeup. The Rose on the monitor was a thick mask, painted over the face of the Seoyun, who had been crying moments before. That day, she was heading to the studio for her shift change. The manager, with the gold-rimmed glasses, who always stood guard in the hall, called her over. Rose, come here. Her heart sank. She hadn't missed her quota. She had worked herself to death to make sure of it. What was this? Was it room 8? Yes. Keeping her head down, she followed him into his office. The manager sat with his legs crossed on his desk, fiddling with a familiar object. It was her smartphone, the one they had taken from her a month ago. Your little brother, Kim Dong-hoon. Right? Yes. He's being very noisy, posting things on Facebook like, looking for my sister. Even filed a missing person report with the police. As if any of that will do any good, the stupid bastard. The manager chuckled and unlocked her phone. The wallpaper was a photo of her and her brother, smiling. Seoyun bit her lower lip so hard to keep from crying that she tasted blood. This, you see, is very bad for our business. Things are already sensitive these days. He paused, then pulled a small voice recorder from his drawer and set it on the desk with a thud. You're going to have to reassure your family. What? What do you mean? A video message. You'll film one. I'm fine. I'm making good money. The work here is so great I couldn't contact you. You know, that kind of thing. The manager tossed a pre-written script onto the desk in front of her. Here, in this room? Seoyun asked, looking around the moldy office. Are you crazy? Film it here? Go up to the roof. You can see the ocean from there. The view is great. It's perfect for pretending you're at a resort. I'll send a guard with you. You'd better act your part. Just think of your brother's life depending on your performance. His voice was soft, but the words were as cold as a blade. What do you mean? We know your brother's address. His school. We do, international shipping, you know. Sending one of your fingers. That's easy work, so you'd better do this right. Got it? Seoyun felt suffocated. This wasn't a choice. It was just another form of torture. The stairs to the roof, which she climbed with an armed guard, felt endless. Clank. The rooftop door opened, and for the first time in a month, she saw an unobstructed sky. A hot, humid wind hit her face. The roof was spacious, but it, too, was part of the massive prison. High barbed wire fences surrounded it, and security cameras glinted from every corner of the building. But in one direction, beyond the barbed wire, the blue ocean of Sihanoukville stretched out to the horizon. And between the ocean and the buildings, she could see the city's landmark. The massive, golden lion statue. Okay, start. The manager held her own smartphone and turned on the camera. The guard stood directly behind Seoyun, just out of the camera's frame. The metal of the taser on his hip glinted in the sun. Seoyun stared into the lens. She imagined her mom, her dad, and her brother, Donghoon, on the other side. Tears threatened to spill. Don't cry. You have to smile. Naturally, she pulled her cheek muscles up into a forced smile. Mom? Dad? Donghoon, ah. It's me, Seoyun. Her voice came out horribly shaky. Straighten up. The guard growled lowly from behind her. Seoyun swallowed and took another breath. She tried to remember the vocal exercises from the theater club. This is acting. This is the last performance of my life. I'm doing well. Really, I'm sorry I couldn't contact you. It's just, I've been so busy with work here. Haha, she continued, recalling the script. I'm not in Phnom Penh. I'm in a place called Sihanoukville. It's a total resort town. The place I work at is a brand new resort. They give me room and board, and the pay is great. My sunbae is taking good care of me. Her stomach churned as she said Jaeha's name, but she couldn't stop. Good, that's natural. Show the scenery a bit. So they'll believe you. The manager nodded, satisfied. This was the moment. Seoyun felt her heart pound as if it would explode. This is the only chance. Even for just 1 second. She took the smartphone from him. She switched from selfie mode to the rear camera. Here, look at this. The view is amazing, right? She smiled brightly on purpose, and slowly panned the camera. At first, she filmed what the manager wanted. The beautiful ocean in the distance. You see the ocean? It's so pretty. And then, for a fleeting instant, pretending to lose her balance, oh, wait, she tilted the camera angle slightly. The camera moved off the ocean and, for a split second, flashed past the most unique feature of the building. A bizarrely shaped water tank, painted red, in the corner of the roof. Then, the angle tilted down, capturing the inside of this hellish city. For 0.5 seconds, the identical gray buildings, the iron bars on every window, and the armed guards patrolling the plaza flashed across the screen. Finally, pretending to quickly pan back to the ocean, she caught the tail section of the golden lion statue in the corner of the frame. Ah, sorry, my hand slipped. Anyway, it's great here. I'm going to make a lot of money and come home, so don't worry. Okay, and Donghoon, you too. Stop posting weird things on Facebook. I'm fine. That's enough. Stop. The manager snatched the smartphone from her hand. He skimmed the video. It shook in the middle, but it had the ocean. And Seoyun's smiling face, so it seemed fine. Why'd you shake it in the middle? Ah, I just got dizzy from the fresh air after so long. I'm sorry. Idiot. Whatever. This will be enough to fool them. The manager opened the My Family KakaoTalk chatroom. He pressed the send button. As Seoyun watched the one disappear, her hands trembled. She had just made a life or death gamble. In that 1-minute, 30-second video, she had planted 3 clues. The building's red water tank, the prison-like interior of the compound, and the fact that this place was near the golden lion statue. Donghoon, please figure it out. You always said I had no talent for acting. Please see through my awful acting. Go back inside. The manager's cold order came down. The rooftop door was locked shut again. Seoyun returned to the perfect darkness. But her heart was pounding for a different reason now. As she walked back to cubicle 37, she prayed and prayed to a god she didn't even believe in. Please, let someone see that fleeting glimpse. 5. The Golden Lion. Back in Korea, a small apartment in Gangwon-do. Kim Donghoon hadn't slept in days. Not since the day the video from his sister arrived. Mom, Dad, it's me, Seoyun. I'm doing well. In the video, his sister was clearly smiling. His parents had finally breathed a sigh of relief. See, she says she's fine. She was just busy with work. But not Donghoon. He had been the sole audience for his sister's acting for over 10 years. In high school, when she played Juliet in Romeo and Juliet for the school festival, her cheeks had twitched with nervousness as she played dead. After drinking the poison, the smile on his sister's face in the video was exactly the same as it was back then. A desperate, on the verge of tears, "I'm okay" smile. The worst, most wooden acting in the world. It's a lie, Dong-hoon was certain. For the past 48 hours, he had watched the 1-minute, 30-second video hundreds of times, analyzing it frame by frame. He'd locked himself in his room, telling his parents he was just organizing some files on Nuna's computer. And finally, he caught it. The fleeting mistake. The 0.5 seconds when the screen shook violently. Dong-hoon took a screenshot. The quality was terribly pixelated, but the information was there. First, the bizarre, red water tank on the roof. Second, the gray buildings that looked like a prison, with iron bars on the windows. Third, in the far-off distance, blurry but unmistakable, the tail of the Golden Lion statue. Sihanoukville, Golden Lion statue. He immediately opened Google Earth satellite view. He started at the Golden Lion roundabout in Sihanoukville and widened his search, radius by radius. He cross-referenced the roofs of every building in the satellite photos. And finally, in an isolated area far from the coast, he found it. A place that matched the video. A compound surrounded by a massive wall, filled with dozens of gray buildings. And, clear even in the satellite photo, a red water tank. New development near Otris Beach. He immediately went to a Korean expat community board for Cambodia and a local information site, posting the photo anonymously. Subject: does anyone know where this building is? Urgent. A reply came in 10 minutes. User: delete this. You're in danger. User: that's a city. A Chinese-run crime compound. Don't go near it, ever. User: once you go in there, you never come out. Heard someone died there just the other day. Dong-hoon felt the blood drain from his body. He immediately blasted every piece of evidence he had gathered to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the South Korean Embassy in Cambodia, and the National Police Agency's Cybercrime Unit. My sister has been kidnapped and is being held captive. This is the location. Please save her. 5 days later, Seoyun was sitting in cubicle 37. In the 5 days since she'd sent the video, she had swung between hope and despair 1,000 times. Nothing had happened. Had Dong-hoon even noticed? And even if he had, what could he do? She was wearing the Rose mask, mechanically reading the chat window. Rose looks like she's in a bad mood today. 1,000 coins if you smile. That's when it happened. Boom. The entire building shook violently, as if from an earthquake. From the first floor, from the direction of the red iron gate, came a massive sound, like an explosion. While the chat window flooded with, "What's happening?" The sound of urgent footsteps and shouting erupted from the hallway outside the studio. It was a mix of Chinese and mangled Korean. "It's the police. The cops are here. The server. Shut down the server. Destroy all the hard drives. Now." The manager, with the gold-rimmed glasses, burst into the studio, his eyes wild. He was no longer holding a recorder. In his hand was a menacing baseball bat. "Destroy the computers. All of them. Right now." The women screamed. When they hesitated in fear, the manager started smashing the monitors himself. Crack, crack, shards of glass flew. Thud, 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 thud. The sound of dozens of combat boots grew closer in the hall. "Don't move. Put your hands up." The studio door was kicked open, and Cambodian special police in black ballistic vests swarmed in, along with a middle-aged man wearing a familiar Korean police vest. "Everyone on the ground. Hands on your head." When the manager tried to resist, raising the bat, a commando struck him in the gut with the butt of his rifle. The manager collapsed, screaming. It was chaos, all happening in a split second. Seoyun was hiding under her desk, shaking like a leaf. This wasn't real. It was just another horrible show. Just then, the man in the Korean police vest, his face drenched in sweat, scanned the room and yelled, "Korean citizens, are there any Koreans here? It's okay, we are the Korean police." Seoyun could only cry silently, her hand over her mouth. The man shouted again, urgently. Kim Seoyun. Is Kim Seoyun here? Your brother reported you missing. Kim Seoyun. That voice. Her real name. Hearing her name for the first time in a month, Seoyun felt as if all the chains binding her had shattered. Me. She scrambled, crawling out from under the desk. It's me. I'm Kim Seoyun. Help me. Please, help me. The police officer ran to her. He took off his own ballistic vest and draped it over her, covering the cheap slip. You're okay, Ms. Kim. It's all over now. We're going home. The moment she heard those words, Seoyun's legs gave out, and she collapsed. She grabbed the officer's arm and wailed like a child. All the terror and sorrow she had suppressed for a month poured out in hot tears. She was helped out and walked down the hallway, the 8-person room, the manager's office, and finally, the first-floor lobby. The plaza where she had been dragged in was now swarming with hundreds of police and soldiers. Dozens, hundreds of men and women, all terrified like her, were crouched on the ground, hands over their heads. And in the distance, she saw it. The massive, red gate she had entered through. It had been blown open, perhaps by explosives. The gate was bent like taffy and half open. Through that gap, she could see the Sihanoukville night sky. She stumbled, taking her first step outside the gate. Instead of mold and sweat, the night air, mixed with the salty smell of the sea, filled her lungs. Far in the distance, the golden lion statue glowed faintly in the light of the street lamps. It was the landmark of her hell, and the beacon of her salvation. Seoyun fell to her knees on the asphalt and, finally, lost consciousness. Epilogue. 6 months later. Gangwon-do. Seoyun was watering the small flower bed in the yard. Instead of the sticky heat of Phnom Penh, a cool, clean breeze blowing down from Seoraksan Mountain rustled her short hair. Immediately after returning to Korea, she had cut her long hair to her shoulders, a ritual to erase the traces of rose. The first month back from hell was spent wide awake. She would jump at the small LED light in her room, and was afraid to even look at a monitor, keeping her phone far away. She did not return to the moldy semi-basement in Seoul. She went home, to her parents' house in Gangwon-do, to the house where Donghoon was. She was going to therapy, twice a week, consistently. Her therapist said it would take time to reclaim the name, Kim Seoyun. Nuna, water. Donghoon sat on the Tonmaru, a narrow wooden porch, and handed her a glass of roasted corn tea. They hadn't spoken much about what happened. Donghoon simply stayed by her side, a silent presence. The little brother who used to tease her for her awful acting was the only audience member who had recognized her most desperate performance. Thanks. Sure. As Seoyun drank her tea, the 9 o'clock news played from the living room TV. Mr. Lee, a former TV personality, indicted on charges of imprisoning and exploiting dozens of young people as part of a Cambodian employment scam, has been sentenced to 15 years in prison in the first trial. On the screen, Lee Jaeha, once her lifeline, was in a prison uniform, head bowed, being led into the courtroom. A month after Seoyun's rescue, he had been arrested in a joint operation with Interpol while trying to flee to Thailand and was extradited to Korea. He had been the head recruiter for Koreans for a massive Chinese-run syndicate. Seoyun watched the TV screen with a placid expression. It wasn't anger or sadness, just cold indifference. Nuna, want me to change the channel? No, it's fine. She picked up the remote herself and turned the TV off. She was no longer the Kim Seoyun who envied Lee Jaeha's glamorous SNS. Nor was she the BJ Rose trapped in cubicle 37. Seoyun looked at the small garden balsam seedling she had planted in the flower bed. It hadn't flowered yet, but it had taken firm root in the soil. She touched the dirt with her hand. The smell of damp, living earth rose from her fingertips, not the smell of mold from a semi-basement. Her time, at last, had begun to flow again.